Good day and welcome everyone. We're happy to have you with us for this DevOps.com webinar. We have a great topic. We're going to be talking about HCL Volt MX and how to build low-code mobile apps at scale in your organization 50% faster. Sounds like a great topic to me. We're always interested in accelerating and meeting business needs as quickly as we can. Today's webinar is sponsored by HCL Software. My name is Mitch Ashley. I'll serve as your host and moderator. We have a few housekeeping items. First, we are recording the webinar, so we will send everyone who registered for the webinar today an email with a link to the webinar recording, so you'll be able to get that as well. And I believe we're also going to be sending out the slides. I'll verify that with the team here, so you can get a copy of those. Be sure to stick around at the end. You must be present to win. We have 4 gift cards that we're giving away, 4 Amazon gift cards. So hang tight with us for the next hour. We have some great content. And speaking of content, we love questions. So we would love to have you enter any questions into our webinar interface here. A couple ways you can do that. There's a Q&A tab. And if you just enter your question in there, we'll answer it or get to that either during the content presentation, part of the presentation, or at the end. We've got some time reserved for Q&A. And feel free to pop some messages into the public chat too. We're happy to interact with you that way. So let's move on to our topic. HCL Volt MX, build low-code mobile apps at scale in your organization 50% faster. So it's my great pleasure to introduce to you today our 2 speakers. First is Andrew Manby. Andrew is AVP Product Management at HCL Software, and also Stuart McKay, Director of Software Services at HCL Software as well. Well, I'm going to turn it over to you, Andrew, so take it away.
Thank you very much, Mitch, and it's good to be on a live channel with you again.
You as well. I always love talking with you.
Yes, exactly. Loved it last time. By the way, the slides are actually posted. I think they're available as a handout, so you can go and take a look at them. So, Stu, why don't we move to the first slide? So I've got a couple of slides just to set the context of the presentation. I mean, I think that we all understand by now the business benefits of a low-code platform. We know that far more people can build something in low code than pro code. We know that there are potentially large savings in app dev costs and reduced project risks from your digital transformation project. And depending on where you deploy it, it can also result in improving your corporate agility. One of the things that I think that Stu and I have seen in the customer engagements and conversations that we have is that it can really help organizations unleash their employee innovation. And as you'll hear from Stu today, it's those fusion teams, those business and IT teams coming together with the right sort of tool set and the right approach, which is really the secret sauce you're going to hear today, will make those go faster. Right. So if you put all these things together by the end of the session today, you'll understand how it's easier to get started, it's easier to evolve what you have, and faster to get it right. On this slide, I wanted to sort of touch on six things briefly that sort of help to sort of guide our strategy for our professional development platform, but also our citizen development platform for low code. Is any platform that you choose should be able to enable you to imagine it and build it. Right? It should make it very easy to go from the very simple to the most complex. As we find with building any sort of new mobile experience, it's really what you're doing to automate those processes that's really important. Either those processes that you are going to digitize, maybe you're going to re-engineer or wrap them, or create new ones, and the platform should be capable of doing that. And those sources of truth, your systems of record, maybe your systems of engagement, all have to be integrated in a meaningful way that makes sure that the developer can stay focused on the high value items, which is really providing that great sticky user experience. And also making sure that we make it very easy to start with the forms, the workflows, and integrating the system, any of the systems visually, and to make sure that you can get started very quickly and deliver those solutions up to 10 times faster. So Stu, why don't you take us to the next slide? So for doing mobile development as part of your business transformation, what we hear customers say, consistently is that, they want to deliver those exceptional ways to engage with their customers, consumers, or employees, depending on the channel or the business problem they're trying to solve. Sometimes that's because there's a need, based on customer service interaction to improve those processes or automate them. Sometimes it's to drive competitive advantage with some sort of self-service aspect and extending the reach. Sometimes it's about modernizing existing app. Sometimes it's driven from a point of view of saying, look, we want to transform the way we do things. We want to take this out of being a high touch way of interacting, maybe picking up a driver's license, or registering a new car, as an example, or paying a parking fine, and just simply put it in the hands of the user. And that's typically the motivations. So what sort of makes our platform special for doing that is, any type of development, you're always going to come across building multiple experiences across different platforms, different mobile devices, different operating systems, different form factors, whether it's wearables, whether it's tablets, whether it's phones, whether it's PWAs. And you need one platform to be able to build it once and deploy everywhere. The second thing is, and this is where a lot of the acceleration and also the problem surface themselves, is really thinking about, how do I integrate all those backend systems? How do I bring orchestration and reliable set of business rules and processes to get the most out of integrating with the backend, to make sure that the app that I'm building is as functionally rich as it possibly can be and delivering more value to the user. And that's something the platform does very well. And then the last point, which I think can't be overestimated, considering, where we are in the evolution of our extraordinary times here, is I think people are thinking more about how do they engage with their constituents. I know in the retail space, in food services, even in factories, people thinking about, how do I add new ways to convey information? It may be through dashboards, it may be through AR, VR techniques, and that could be as simple as giving workers the ability to look at particular important information about the state of the manufacturing or the process or the machines that they're using, the equipment. Or it could be as simply as, I'm in a retail store and I need to find this particular item. Show me how to get there. And then I think it's also a realization that when people want to wayfind, there's multiple ways to do that. Sometimes I want to scan a QR code. Sometimes I want to ask the app a question. Sometimes I want to show me some relevant information that will help me make a decision. And sometimes, it's implementing commerce with a focus on outcomes. So there's lots of things to try and make those environments stickier. So if that is, I'm trying to address the why. So I'm going to address now a little bit of the how. So let's go to the next slide, Stu. And this is sort of really to tee up Stu's part of the presentation. So we feel very strongly with our Volt MX platform targeted at the professional developer, that Volt MX really enshrines the importance of the software development lifecycle. So if you're lucky enough to use one of these tools, we really want to make sure that we have the intersection with the tool chains that you use. But it's all about acceleration from the prototype to deployment for you to make improvements, whether it's from design and coding with WYSIWYG techniques for designing the flow or the logic, or it's bringing in the design elements from your designers to make sure that the brand consistency is there, from your mobile to your web presence, your DXP. It could be in terms of, how you do your automated testing. Maybe it's about how you do your test recording, playback, and editing. Maybe it's how you do your CI/CD processes within your organization, or maybe it's how you do monitoring of things such as application performance or journey management. All of these things should be supported within your professional grade low-code application development platform. And with Volt MX, you get that. And let me just say one final thing, and this I'll hand over to Stu. This is all great, but we know it takes more than technology. It takes a team to play their role to bring this all together. And what I'm really excited about, what Stu is going to share with you, is he's going to share with you the best practices of world-class centers of excellence and how they do component-based development at scale using this platform, right? So for them, the why has already been answered about what business problem they're solving, and they're using these set of capabilities to be able to solve the problem. And the secret sauce is the center of excellence. So Stu, over to you for some secret sauce.
Thanks, Andrew. That's great. Oh, what a great intro. So yeah, I'm going to spend a little while talking about the low-code building blocks for pro development. So this is really a collection of best practices, both from our professional services team here at HCL Software, as well as our partners and our customers, around really building best practices that really kind of accelerate development and improve that velocity so that customers can move from building one or two applications to building 10, 20, 30, 40 applications. And we've got some really great examples of how they've done that. So, I wanted to start with really what are the low-code building blocks. And, there's obviously more than just these four areas, really define a low-code culture for a customer. But I would say that these four probably, percolate to the top in importance. Obviously, people and talent are so important. And I don't necessarily mean just, finding the best people, but organizing them in a way that they scale and they cross-pollinate is very, very important. Defining governance around low-code development is very, very important. We'll talk about that around, how you develop standards, what you should be governing, within your low-code environment, and the types of things that you can harvest out of that environment as well. Choosing the right technology platform. So what are the things you should be looking for? How do we embrace those things? Andrew's talked a lot about, some of the great features in Volt MX, and those things really are part of our DNA when we build low code and we build low code at scale. And then finally, the process of development, change management and running, and how you do that in combination with all of these other building blocks to really make things happen. So let me jump right in. First one around people, staffing and talent, probably one of the most important things. And, the structure of the team, you'll probably see similarities to what you do today, but I wanted to highlight these around how we build out our teams and how we staff them for low-code, pro-code development. So specifically, it starts at the top around technical leadership. So having an architect or a technical leader that's, competent in the technology, provides that leadership skills, makes those architectural decisions, really, instills a culture of reuse and using reusable patterns is very, very important. So we like to always staff our projects with a technical lead. Then we move on to a UX designer. I would honestly say that this is probably one of the more overlooked members of a team in low-code development. I really think that the compelling success around low-code development is the look and feel of the app. Like good-looking apps, they sell externally, they sell internally. They really build the groundswell of interest in adopting the platform. So having a UX designer that can work with the users, can do design thinking workshops, can build visual prototypes, can do it at speed, define the guidelines, and really help the business or the customer really with their journey, and the key outcomes that they want to get out of that application are extremely important. And as I said, I honestly think it's overlooked in many cases. Developers, obviously you need a team of developers, front end, back end developers. We obviously embrace open standards, so pulling developers that have the common development skills around JavaScript, Java, SQL, REST. The ability to do testing and debugging is important too, as I get into sort of how do we move some of that testing and quality assurance earlier in the development cycles is certainly something that's very important. So having developers that have that background and are able to do those types of things are very important as well. Testers. So we do, we do have testers on our teams, and we encourage our customers and partners to have testers as well. In addition to the developers, the skill sets here are really around, test scripts, conditions, and understanding the boundaries of the applications and doing it in a way that, instills quality in the applications and consistency across the applications as well is very important. And finally, the Scrum Master or the project manager that brings it all together, the leader that from a business perspective owns the overall delivery of the application or the program, coordinates with all of the stakeholders, and really, instills that agile practice within the team. So this is a fairly common structure, and I think, across, various development teams, you would have this type of structure, but how do you make it scale? And one of the areas that we really use is this concept of a core flex model, where you have a core team that instills this these levels of consistency within the organization, but then you have a flexibility where you add to this team over time based on business demands. So the idea here is that you always maintain a core set of competency across these areas to ensure the digital transformation and ensure the adoption of the technology. But as you start to build more and more apps, you add to this team, and as you get into quieter periods where you're not building as many apps, you can release those people back to other project teams. So this concept of a core flex model is something that we use, within HCL software, and something that our customers use very often as well in their sort of low-code centers of excellence, because it really provides that level of continuity, by having that core set of subject matter experts, that really understand how to build great apps. But it also provides you that scalability around, staffing up and staffing down as project demands, change within the organization. Let's move over to governance for a minute. I mentioned a couple times, as did Andrew, this concept of a center of excellence. It's something that a lot of our customers use. Centers of excellence really act as the command center for all of the apps that are built within the environment. A lot of the customers, and the case study that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes is they've really taken this to heart, and they've actually implemented a center of excellence themselves. And we see this more and more with low-code development. The other thing we see is a lot of customers really, building assets and listing those assets and building inventories of assets for low-code capabilities. And this is something that's really important, when you really want to scale, is starting to get a collection of the assets and capabilities that have already been built, right? Because you don't want to be reinventing the wheel by 3 different teams within your organization, but rather having each of those teams kind of harness the same assets and capabilities across their various low-code applications, so that you start to get consistency, you start to get quality, and you start to get velocity as well in those. So how does that happen? This diagram really kind of explains, at a high level, what we like to see with various low-code teams, where you might have 3 teams building 3 different applications, and obviously they're building different business functionality. They have different stakeholders, and obviously they're building different components. But what we like to see is there's always commonality between them, whether it be reusable assets or components around navigation or integration or security, and making sure that this culture of reuse is really instilled within these teams is really important. So we like to see this concept of a reuse sweet spot within organizations, where they're always encouraging and rewarding their teams for finding this reuse and making sure that the assets and the components that they're building out of their applications are actually being shared across the organization as well. Guidelines are really important, right? One of the things we want to see in low code, whether it's for citizen or pro developers, is really making sure that there's guidelines published for all of them. So use cases, listen, there's always good ways of building apps and bad ways of building apps, and there's always good use cases and bad use cases. And we like to see customers publish really good, common, clear, crisp use cases for their apps. Like, these are the common scenarios. These are the lines of business. These are the types of applications that really, lead themselves well for this platform and this technology. It's very important. It helps your business and your technology team start to align, their requirements with the technology decisions that they're making, so that they don't go and they try to, put a round peg, square peg in a round hole, for instance. UI standards are really important as well. I talked, earlier around the team composition, around the importance of a UI developer, but a lot of people don't know necessarily what the standards are, what the app should look like, what are the branding requirements, what are the fonts, how do we lay out screens? So providing those templates and those UI standards in a publicly accessible place where all of the teams across the organization can share and collaborate and continue to build on those UI standards are very important as well. Integration, Andrew talked about that as one of the key benefits of our platform. And integration is really one of the reasons why customers choose Volt MX, around its powerful integration capabilities. As an organization, if you're building a center of excellence, we want our customers to make sure that they're, making their developers aware of, examples, how it's done, inventory, what's available to even integrate with, and what are the best practices around that. And in some cases, what are the implications of doing it, right? Like, are there licensing implications with going against this backend, REST service? Do we have to buy more licenses? Are we entitled to do that? What are the limitations as well as the benefits of doing that integration as well? Security and InfoSec requirements are very important as well. Those should be published somewhere publicly, so that all of the users and all of the developers and the teams that are building these applications that are aware and can implement those standards, as part of the DNA of the applications that they're building, so that we have a consistent and secure, framework where the apps are being built. The final thing is, building potentially an internal marketplace or an asset catalog as well. So, this is something we've done at HCL, where we've actually published internally an asset catalog and an app marketplace for all of the applications that we build internally within HCL software, so that other lines of business can actually come in, grab the code or grab snippets of the code and actually, accelerate the development of their next application. So like the finance team or the HR team or the legal team all have different applications that they built, using Volt MX. And we have a marketplace where those applications are posted, in a generic form, where other lines of business can come in and actually take those assets and start to accelerate the development of them. And having that marketplace and curating that marketplace is extremely important in allowing the broader organization, outside of that core team of developers, to start to adopt this technology and use it for their various business needs. I'm now going to talk a little bit about choosing the right technology, and Andrew did go into some great depth and some really important points around Volt MX. I wanted to talk at a level around making sure that when you're building a center of excellence and you're trying to accelerate the development of your low-code platform, what are the types of characteristics that you should be looking for when you're choosing technology? So obviously, drag and drop features, widgets, reusable components. You heard me talk about that. That's really important. WYSIWYG type of integration capabilities are very important. Back to the UI topic again. Over and over again, I talk about UI. Like, great apps look good, and that's really important. So having a developer experience where your UX designers and your developers can work together, whether it be in Photoshop, Sketch, Figma, whatever the UI tool is, and really start to import those capabilities into the UI, and the developer experience is very important, and it provides rapid prototyping very, very quickly. So those types of things are very important. in getting buy-in from your business users, getting buy-in from your customers, and really accelerates and it makes the development cycle so much more efficient. It's really just, it's the essence of agile development, and making sure those tools can do that is very important. Cloud native is very important to us too, and we really preach this. It's part of our DNA in HCL software. All of our products are cloud native, and having a technology that can be provided through cloud services is very, very important to us. I really find that when I look at customers and how far they've gotten in their development projects, customers that typically can move fast are usually customers that are able to cut through some of the infrastructure red tape of getting software installed, configured, and up and running, and it can really focus on development versus those that spend a lot of time just trying to get it installed. So if you have the opportunity of taking advantage of cloud services around your low-code development, it can really accelerate your speed. It allows, again, all sorts of opportunities around rapid prototyping, allowing various businesses access to technology that would be, maybe just too complicated for that line of business to embrace otherwise. Volt MX does provide that. We certainly have a huge presence in the cloud and a very successful opportunity for our customers to really evaluate, try the technology, move to prototyping, and then actually build an app, all without having to do huge on-site infrastructure investments. From a testing perspective, we like to see low-code platforms that really integrate with common industry standard testing frameworks. So Jasmine, as an example, a lot of our teams use that around recording, creating, and replaying tests, so that it's consistent. The testers and the developers have a consistent way of ensuring quality and continuous development and delivery of applications. We also like to see side-by-side testing as well. So being able to debug and test while you're actually developing. And this is where I was talking earlier around team composition, and having your developers more involved in the testing cycles up front, actually drastically improves the acceleration and the velocity of teams as well. So having those developers be able to basically drop code in, do some iterative testing basically in real time, and actually try it on iOS, Android, PWA, all of those things, all in one single development experience is very, very powerful as well. And that front-end development and prototyping on various devices is so important. It's one of the things that we really feel strongly about, is being able to build an application once and have it published across multiple devices or multiple delivery engines is extremely important to us. So having that platform or technology where, again, you can build that application, build the business functionality, build the UI, build the integration and the security framework around it, and then publish it to iOS, Android, and PWA user experiences, is basically, it's a 3-for-1 deal from my perspective. So it drastically improves and shortens the development cycles for our customers. So I'm going to jump into a case study quickly. This is a global marketing company and a customer that we've been working with for many years now. And their challenge was really, historically they've had a 60-year-old approach to sales and how they sell and engage with their customers. And we came to them several years ago and designed with them a new way of engaging not only their internal users, but also their customers and their partners as well from a sales perspective. So we basically built a global sales application for them using Volt MX. And again, the same type of team composition that I talked about before, where we started small. We had a core team of developers, and then we used that flexible model of actually scaling that team out as more and more applications were demanded by the businesses. And we basically helped this customer build a centralized application development center, a center of excellence around low-code development using Volt MX. And they built consistency around how they did integration. They did consistency around how they did user experience. And this team basically was the operating center for the broader organization. So all the lines of businesses globally would build their own applications, but then draw upon the government governance of this center of excellence around ensuring consistency around the applications they built. So what was the result of this? They started with one application a few years ago, and now they've got over 20 applications in 60 countries around the world. So a global embracement of the Volt MX platform. They were able to build applications and accelerate the development in under 2 years, and basically go from a customer and a business that didn't really have a mobile strategy or a global sales strategy, and move it into a platform that now has over 20 applications in production today. So it's very interesting story. Just one of many that if you lay the right foundation or you lay the right building blocks in how you build low code, it really drives a lot of dividends in the future around being able to accelerate the development of applications across the organization. So how do you get started? And I wanted to spend a couple minutes just talking about some of the offers that we have from HCL Software. So we have an accelerators program focused on Volt MX, and what this is really designed to do is really help customers with that acceleration of low code development. So it's really a set of predefined offerings. One is around building applications, so it's a turnkey, accelerated turnkey program where we have an app factory that actually builds the application for you. So we can actually build the business logic and the code in 4 weeks and have it published out to app stores in less than 8 weeks, start to finish, including UI design, including testing, including integration. And then the other one, which is really interesting, is around mentoring. So we really understand the importance of teaching our customers all of these topics that we talked about today, and really doing it in a player coach kind of model, where we actually embed resources into a customer's environment and teach them around enablement. So some basic enablement around taking advantage of the low code features in Volt MX, taking advantage of best practices in app development and architecture and implementation, as well as helping the customer and understanding all of these key points around building a center of excellence or low code culture within their organization. And this resource really becomes part of the customer's environment for 8 or 14 weeks while they go through that experience of building that first application. And then, the outcome of that is the customer becomes self-sufficient in how they build applications, how they build out their low-code center of excellence, how they build out, their asset catalogs, their internal marketplace, how they build out their teams, the types of skilled resources that they need to continue that acceleration and to continue that scaling of the applications. So again, if you're interested in this is something that, we offer here at HCL Software. It's a program that a lot of our customers have taken advantage of and has shown, huge benefits in their ability to really get going in a lot of these topics and build applications, 50% faster. Finally, before I turn it back to Mitch, I did want to just let everybody know that we do have a QR code here and a website where you can get more information, not only about Volt MX and the webinar today, but also you can request a demo of Volt MX, and you can also request more information about the Volt MX accelerators as well. So if you just click on the QR code or link to the website, you can fill in a contact form and we'll reach back out to you. And it's kind of the first step in your journey to building apps at scale. So with that, Mitch, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Very good, man. Great stuff. It's really practical information that you both are sharing with everyone today. We've got some great questions lined up that have been entered here by our audience. And please, if you have any other questions while we're talking, feel free to add those too. We'll get to as many as we can. First question is this balance of customer experience and employee experience, which matters more, or how do you achieve to keep kind of both happy, both camps, if you will? Whoever wants to take that.
Andrew, why don't you go for it? I can't see the screen, so I'll let you take that one.
Sorry, I have to get myself off mute, right? Otherwise it doesn't work. I think it's a great question. I don't think it's like either or. I think it comes down to what I was saying at the beginning is what's the objective of the business, all right, and how they define their businesses and where they want to bring innovation. I mean, I think, employee engagement is super, super important these days. I think that's something, and these tools certainly help with that, to empower employees inside the organization. But I think it comes down to the business, right? I mean, I think a lot of business models and businesses are under sort of pressure and, competitively. And I think a lot of companies have stepped up their game. So if they're feeling it directly, then, bringing innovation into their, customer, consumer, or citizen, or business partner touch points are important. I mean, some of those actions are really there just to continue to do business, right? Make it easier to order stuff remotely, enable you to do in-store pickups, right? I mean, I think that's just bread and butter. You just have to get that done.
Just to add in to what you're saying, Andrew, it can actually work to both, right? It's
Right.
fun and exciting trying a new technology. It's fun doing something where you feel like you're accomplishing more faster, and also getting new capabilities into either other employees or into the customer's hands more quickly. So it
Yep.
can be a very satisfying experience if you sort of
Yep.
line all these things up.
Yeah, that's true.
So very cool. Anything you want to add, Stuart, before we move on?
No, that's good. Yep.
Okay, perfect. What does build once, deploy everywhere mean? Not we all are surrounded in this, in this sea of DevOps and the terminology and low code and the world that we work in, and not everybody knows every term that we might throw out here. So maybe you can give one of you can give us a good.
Yeah, why don't we have Stu do that one? I mentioned it as one of the core things, which is the platform's really good at.
Yeah.
Maybe Stu, you can give a practical
Sure.
example.
Yeah. So this is we talked about sort of the secret sauce for building low code cultures in this webinar, but the secret sauce around being successful at low code is really doing things once and doing them really well. And when you talk about building once and deploying everywhere, it's really about making sure that the app and making sure that the platform that you choose supports all of the users and the device types that you want to publish to. And Volt MX is really fabulous. It's the market leader in this area, being able to build business functionality, workflows, user layouts and screens for your business application. And then, like we mentioned earlier, being able to publish it out to tablets, phones, whether it be iOS or Android devices, and PWA, desktops as well. So it's an incredibly powerful platform. And, you save an incredible amount of time by choosing technologies that allow you to do that.
Stuart, are there ways while you're visually building applications using Volt that you have some idea or concept how it might look on a mobile platform versus a web platform, or what those differences might be for the deploy anywhere kind of situation?
Yeah, like what we try to do is, most of our UX designers are really, they have a very good understanding of, the capabilities across those various platforms. So what we try to do is, give the customer sort of a story of what it will look like for those various personas, whether it be, a desktop application or a mobile experience. Use cases also drive how the app will look too. So a great example is, like a field service application, or maybe a field inspection application, right? It's probably more than likely going to be driven from a tablet device. So, having the UX designer really work with the stakeholders around, understanding not just what the app looks like, but what's the scenarios by which the app's going to be used, right? Is it going to be offline? Are people going to be in a cave, inspecting, machinery and being offline when they're actually doing it? And is offline an important aspect of that, or are they going to be always connected? And those types of things, all of those things kind of go together in sort of helping define what that user experience is for those various apps.
That's a really good point. Not everybody's sitting at home in front of their browser, right? Using an app.
Right.
Even though we all are kind of emerging out of our caves right now, as hopefully COVID is getting better. Cross our fingers, and of course our thoughts and prayers go out to folks that are certainly battling COVID in their areas. Next question is, I like this question. I appreciate some brave soul throwing this out there. What will low code platforms kill DevOps? Is this the death of DevOps?
Okay, I think Stu, that's a big one, right? That feels like that's Mitch. I think that was like a gifted question, right?
I feel like I'm announcing a movie, The Death of DevOps.
Yeah, exactly. Coming to a theater near you very shortly. No, I don't think so. I mean, there are two, and I'm going to sort of step out of the professional developer realm. I think that in the world of citizen development, right, you got to have governance controls over what they do. The expectations of what they are building may be slightly different, right? They're trying to build situational apps. They're trying to use curated integrations that IT have allowed them. So I think in that realm, it doesn't have the same discipline as DevOps, but the expectation about the longevity of the app will be different, right? Stu, inside HCL, we build a lot of, citizen developer like apps that solve problems. Sometimes, they're built, and some of them they go viral, right? But I don't think there's an expectation that it's really a DevOps thing. It's more like a governance role, right? For those types of things, you wouldn't put DevOps around a spreadsheet. So, as much as you would like, I think on the professional developer side, like Volt MX we're actually talking about here. Considering what you're actually building and the importance of these things to the business, I don't think DevOps is enshrined in. That's what I was trying to convey with the software development lifecycle. DevOps is enshrined in those, in how you use those tools. So you're always going to need that, the build process, the user acceptance testing. I don't think you're ever going to get away from that, because these platforms need to be open. They also need to integrate with whatever the tool chains and capabilities of choices by the enterprise. I see, a low code fitting into whatever the organization is standardized on, rather than flipping it the other way and saying, low code means the end of DevOps. I think it's another participant in it.
Yeah.
Stuart, you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I was gonna answer it in a similar way. Like it's a spectrum from my perspective. Like low code is a spectrum. So, you have, the highly sophisticated applications that, professional developers are doing that, run the business, that still need that level of, governance around them. And that's not going away. And then on the other end, you have the citizen developer that really just wants to upload a spreadsheet and like build a simple workflow so they can collect information, right? Probably that app probably never was suited for DevOps to begin with, right? So it's not that we're taking it away. It's just that we're really empowering the end user. And there's everything in between. Like we, here at HCL Software, we've built some very sophisticated apps using citizen developer platforms as well, right? That run various, companies' businesses, and they still follow a DevOps model as well around their life cycles. So I really don't see it taking away from anything. It's probably just reinforcing that whole process.
Yeah, it seems like not true of every application. Most applications, they're not an island in and of themselves, right? They need data from another application or database, some functionality we're delivering. Maybe the mobile app isn't coming through this platform, it's through some other existing process because it already existed or whatever it might be. So oftentimes those pipelines, you're crossing boundaries of technologies and teams and tools, and you may have to fit into or work with the DevOps process as well. And a lot of the integration that you all have done with HCL, with Volt at HCL, really does that very much, many of the same things of kind of creating that workflow, so you can deploy multiple deploys, integration of how all things work. So yeah, I think it's every technology that comes out, this will replace all others, right? No more mainframe applications. Well, guess what? They're growing too.
Yeah, we have a solution for that as well, Mitch, right?
Well, there you go. Of course. So yeah, I wouldn't expect the death. I agree with you. No movie coming soon about the death of DevOps. So
yeah.
Rebecca asked a really good question about who's usually the decision maker at an organization that chooses a platform like Volt MX.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it depends, right? I would say that most of the decisions that are made are really based on the decision about the problem they're trying to solve, right? So they're typically more like a business leader. I mean, they could be a chief digital officer. They could be someone with a VP of business innovation in their title. Typically, it could be a chief marketing officer. I mean, there's one customer that I've spoken to. Their CMO was a former CDO, chief digital officer, at another similar organization. So they're very sensitized, to the needs of digital, I think. It could also be, people who have perhaps more a business sort of facing role, like the VP of mobile apps, specifically for that channel. There are important influences in that decision, Mitch, right? I mean, we do get a lot of interaction with the enterprise architects and normally like the CTOs. But I think they're more interested in, how do you accelerate the deployment, right? I mean, do I really need two sets of development teams if I really want to take advantage of the best of iOS and the best of Android? Well, the answer is, using a tool set like this, you don't need that, right? That's why you choose it. So there's definitely the ROI, but I would say most people are actually concerned about the business problem that they're solving, right? And that's the way, that's the way I think it should be, Mitch, right? I mean, there are sort of bake-offs for a technology, and, things such as scale, things such as security, all the stuff we mentioned around DevOps is very important, right? But I think, these IT decisions are increasingly, I would say the pendulum has swung to the business, and they're looking for anything that increases their time to value.
It seems that they're made much more organically. I don't know when the last time I wrote an RFP or responded to one. It's been a long time.
You're lucky.
Well, okay. I'm glad I'm on this side of the digital fence here. So, yeah, it is really true. It can happen anywhere in the organization, and as well as within IT. It doesn't have to be outside of IT, but increasingly, as you said, on the business side. Wonderful. So to that point, Rebecca had a follow-up question of how can one help convince the decision maker from within? So if you know who is going to make the decision, you think you know who, how do you help them get to that place where this is what we need to do?
I can take that one, Andrew, if you
sure.
want. Yeah, so really, you have to show them. I think the most successful, examples of us, doing this with the business is showing them, and that's really around, back to my my previous points around rapid prototyping, right? Getting it in the hands of the business users so that they can try it, right? So that rapid prototyping in the technology is very, very important, right? We typically start with a blueprinting type of activity with all of our customers, where we go through and actually do some rapid prototyping and actually deploy the app in the phone, right? So the stakeholders can actually try the screens and visualize what it looks like. And so it's really the same sales cycle as if you were going out and buying a car at your local car dealership, right? Like it's a big decision, right? It has big implications for yourself, for your business. And really what you want to do is you want to test drive it before you make that decision. You want to feel, the cloth or the leather, and you want to feel how it accelerates and brakes, and you want to feel what those, bucket seats feel like. And the same idea, with low code mobile apps as well. Like, you want to see what they really look like, and what is that experience going to be for the business. And the success rate of doing that versus, going through a traditional cycle of like architecture, design, development, your traditional waterfall approach is much, much higher when we actually get the app in the hands of our customer to try it. They're usually sold, as soon as they can try it and touch it.
I think that's sage advice. And it's also nice to check out the fine Corinthian leather to Ricardo Montalban from an old commercial.
It's true. I was going to ask you, are you about to buy a car or something?
Yeah, he's clearly in the market, which there's really in short supply, so we wish you luck.
No, I don't think no leather, but yeah. But really, it's a great analogy, right? When you think about like, you're trying to represent the value that the application or the platform is going to have for the customer, and you're trying to sell them on the fact that it's low code and you can build things really fast, right? It's sort of like sitting in a Ferrari dealership and telling them without ever test driving the car how fast it is, right? Like, people want to get in it and they want to try it, and that's basically what we do. Is like, okay, like let's get 5 screens and let's get them in the app for you, and you can experience what it's going to look like. Right. And it's a very, very compelling, presentation to the stakeholders and the leadership at any organization to be able to come back in a few days and show them what the app looks like.
Excellent. Really good question here from Morgan, asking about, are there limits on what you can do with mobile apps, i.e., do you lose functionality which native apps provide, or maybe browser-based? I mean, I know we probably have all tried to look at an Excel spreadsheet on a mobile phone. Not a lot of fun. You have to really kind of think about the interface and how it's being delivered on that device. Any thoughts on that? Maybe that's a good one for you, Stuart.
Yeah, so we after the webinar, we can definitely provide a specific list of things. There aren't really limitations that, at the end of the day, there's actually a lot of advantages to doing it that way, right? Versus native development. So, augmented reality, pulling in third-party libraries, back-end integration, like all of those things are things that, if you do it natively, it can be a lot of work, right? So really what we're trying to do is not take away the features, but really add the framework that really allows you to accelerate a lot of those things, right? Like if you're going to build a native iOS app and you want to integrate with, SAP, that's, you've got a lot of, development ahead of you, right? Around building integration layers, selecting, connectors and building that service layer. That all comes out of the box with, Volt MX, right? So the idea here is we're not trying to take things away, but we're trying to put, and again, that building blocks analogy, we're trying to put a lot of those building blocks in place where the customer can pick and choose to really accelerate what they get. So you might find a few things that Apple or Google have put on the phone that you might have to custom code to do something if you want to do it on a build once, deploy multiple times, but it's few and far between. And I think the benefits of doing it once versus doing it 3 times, far outweighs any individual features or functions that you would find on those platforms.
Yeah, I think it's worth sort of pointing out, Stu, just to sort of maybe sort of summarize it, right? I mean, you can do native development, with separate types of toolkits. But what we're talking about with the platform is you get the same richness as a native toolkit, but you're getting it in a form factor that works across those devices, right? So you're not going down to a lowest common denominator and saying, I can only support PWAs or web apps, right? You're actually getting something, as you were saying, Stu, I want to use the AR kit or the VR capability. I want to use LiDAR on my mobile device. And you can do that using this type of platform, and that's a very important thing when someone's choosing this, right? Because if you say, well, maybe I should just pick some of these native toolkits, but you may end up you have to have a separate development team for iOS, a separate one for Android. Okay, maybe I'll use a JavaScript framework, but then what do you do about you're going to start using all this open source stack for integration. You're going to be using all this for DevOps, and you don't want to do the integration and support yourself. You want the acceleration, right? So you want it pre-integrated. So I think enshrining that in one platform is really advantageous. So I don't think you lose anything.
Yeah, that's a lesson that I've learned is don't always take the old way and try to do it in a new tool. Take advantage of what the new tool can do for you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes, and we've come a long way from the days of that mobile app is just a browser app wrapped in a mobile app. You truly can deploy very functional, usable, great experience mobile apps with low code today. So good stuff. Geta has and I hope I'm saying your name correctly, Geta, has a fantastic question I'm sure that you all run into. Her question is, does low code, no code create a new source of business agility and innovation that originates from the business or citizens developers, as you talked about, but then eventually might be handed to true or professional developers for scaling or securing? Is that a flow that you see happening? Is that a need or requirement that you kind of run into with low code? What's your views on that?
Yeah, I know we're running out of time. I'll let Stu answer this one because he does this all the time. And I'm just going to give my thumbs up and said, absolutely, it is.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. It's we do this, and again, going back to that sort of that spectrum of the types of apps that you build. Absolutely, like a lot of this governance and this low code culture and the center of excellence types of activities that we were talking about here is really sort of that formalization of that transition around having and allowing business users or technology users build apps and then hand them off for scaling and securing, right? So it's a very common scenario. We do it internally within our team, within our app factory, and most of our customers do this model as well, around allowing really getting the development in the hands of the people that need the app or want the app, and then really transitioning it through a process of handoff around hardening and scaling as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's really true. I mean, I'm just thinking about some of the apps which have recently been built, Stu, right? They've come from our client advocacy team. Not a developer. Our release management team, not a developer. From our sales team, not a developer, right? But they were able to use those types of tools to conceptualize their idea and be able to communicate it in such a way, opposed to put it down on bits of paper. It sort of reminds me it's really democratizing that capability. I do remember my father-in-law, and who was a sales director, and also another former sales director I worked with. I mean, they did a lot of development for their own in-house systems because they were the subject matter experts, right? And I think the low-code tool has really enabled them to be able to do something productive, right? It's the barrier to entry is so much lower these days. I think it's all goodness.
Yeah, it's like a day doesn't go by in my role where I don't see notifications of like apps being pushed through the pipeline, right, internally through our development team, where You know, a line of business has built an app, and it's like, hey, can you harden and publish and post this for us on our production server? So there's that's constantly happening. It's just it almost, the question almost implies like that there's a formal process, but really it just becomes part of your natural, just like I wouldn't think of doing it any other way now, just because it's just become part of it's a habit now. And
Right.
the business has adopted it as a habit. So they just know, hey, I got this great idea. I'm going to build this app and I know where it goes when I'm done with it, right? And that's the idea of really building that low code culture, or those building blocks, right? Is really getting people conditioned into thinking in that way. So it's a great question.
Well, with that, I'm afraid, you know, as with all good things, we must come to an end. We're at the top of the hour, so we need to let folks get on to their next Zoom meeting. Thank you, gentlemen, Andrew and Stuart from HCL Software. I want to let folks know that our 4 Amazon gift card winners are Robert R., Howard E., Pete T., and Jan R. Folks at MediaOps will be getting a hold of you to let you know how you get those. And also, of course, everyone will be receiving an email with a link to the recording. And if you didn't get a chance to download the slides, we'll send those along as well. So I hope you'll join me in thanking Andrew and Stuart for some really fine content and great experiences that you've shared with us. We hope that you're all well, that you'll all be safe, and we'll see you again soon somewhere along this digital path. Take care. Be well.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.